Karl Konrad. Welcome to Australia's largest immigration news channel, which isn't run by faceless people using AI voices. Here we provide all the updates and analysis of what it all means and where the migration program is heading, using our quarter century of experience of running a professional practice. This week's biggest news came when a surprise 189 invitation round occurred on Thursday. We have yet to discover how many invitations were issued, but quite a number seem to be issued across a broad range of occupations. Some of these occupations in the trade and construction industries were a targeted invitation process, with many receiving invitations at just 65 points. This compares to many engineers, nurses and teachers at 85 points, while accountants seem to need 100 and IT professionals at 95. Of course, reaching these 95 and 100 point levels means that work experience in your nominated occupation after studying in Australia would most likely be required. Remember, these figures I've just rattled off are based on anecdotal examples. We'll have to wait and see what the real figures are when they are released on the Skill Select government web pages. A number of registered nurses at 80 points were not invited, so it seems there is not the high demand of the past. We'll cover more about these facts and figures as they become clearer. The other big news of the week was the Home Affairs Minister's announcement on Wednesday that visitor visa and 485 visa holders would no longer have access to a student visa after the 1st of July while they remained in Australia. This measure has been taken after the Home Affairs admitted that they have no data on what visitor visa holders do after they enter Australia and what type of applications they are lodging. It was also revealed that more visitor visas will be issued with Condition 8503, the no further stay provision. This will stop visitors from lodging most other substantive visas after they arrive in Australia. If you were planning to lodge a student visa and hold a visitor or 485 visa, you will have to act quickly to lodge your application before the 1st of July. We'll have to see how the new legislation pans out in the next couple of weeks to gauge how this will work in reality. The government also tabled legislation this week, pressing ahead with its plans to restrict the total number of international students allowed in Australia. Under the proposed law, each education provider will be given a quota for the maximum number of students allowed. The Education Minister, Jason Clare, was on television this week outlining these new plans.
Legislation would give me the power to do is to set a cap for every university and every higher education and vocational education provider that educates an international student.
Are you going to do that?
Yeah.
So
that's what
every single uni
do.
will have a cap?
Correct.
And what about every course? Because it allows you to do it for every course.
In a sense, that's a reserve power. I'm expecting the focus here, and the work that we'll do will take place over the next 3 months to set what those caps are. That the focus will be on the caps for the institutions rather than the courses.
You'll notice that he dodged the issue of setting limits on the courses, saying that this was just a reserve power. Since when have we known any government law that theoretically just sits in the background, only to be used in case of emergencies? Of course, they will start dictating to providers what numbers in what courses. Now, having placed the universities and other providers into a tailspin of heavy losses, these providers will beg to be given quotas just to stay afloat. Have a listen to this.
It's a reaction from the university sector.
A lot of universities have asked for this because I said it's been a little uneven over the last few years. Well, I'm not going to name them individually, but over the course of this year, Home Affairs have really amped up the integrity measures that they've taken to make sure that people who are given a visa are here for the right purposes. Now, that's meant that some universities have got more students this year than last year, and other universities have got a lot less. So a lot of universities, in particular the smaller universities, have said to me, we'd prefer a different system where you set a level or a cap for us each and every year. And that's what this legislation does.
So hold on a second, for we just can't let that one fly without an analysis. On the one hand, the government is saying that all these student visa rejections are really happening because it's an integrity issue, and it's just a coincidence that most of these students intended to study at the smaller providers. And as these smaller providers are being strangled into submission, the government comes out and says, how about this? We'll give you a cap so you can survive on a smaller growth pattern regulated by us. How would you like that instead? Of course, they will be pleading for a cap just to make ends meet. Then the government says, okay, it seems we don't really have that much of an integrity issue anymore, so here you go. You can have your quota. I mean, really, this government is acting like the mafia. Let's squeeze them till they squeal, and then they'll be happy to take the scraps we give them. It shows there was never such a large integrity issue after all. This mass refusal of student visas based on so-called integrity issues was just a lever the government pulled and is still pulling to gain compliance. Providers are being forced to beg. Please stop pulling the integrity issue and refusing so many student visas. We beg you. Please, we'll take the cap instead. Am I the only one seeing this? Let me know what you think in the comments section. I bet I won't get one university chancellor to come on the show to voice their complaints because they will be too scared of the minister's power to reduce their quota. Is this really the government we want to run the largest export industry we have that we don't dig out of the ground? There was some muted opposition of this proposed student cap bill. The first is from an article in The Australian, citing sources that Australians' university credit ratings will take a huge hit when this cap arrives. And another article discussing this impending doom of universities, and they have gone on the offensive, offering 50,000 places at the beginning of next year, the year of the cap. In the article it states, but despite the caps being due to be legislated within months, the nation's universities have pressed ahead with their recruiting spree, making offers to overseas students for the first year under the controversial new measures. Perhaps they are hoping Labor will be voted out next year and the Liberals will undo these cap measures. Returning to our fight about another cap, the dreaded age cap on the 485 visa. First, some good news. Our petition broke the 20,000 goal with 21,298 in the end. What a great result, and thanks to all of you who helped achieve this result. However, the Minister is giving no sign of relenting on this issue so far. In her press release on Wednesday, she seems to confirm her intent to inflict as much pain and suffering as she can upon tens of thousands of students studying here. In her press release, she states, secondly, temporary graduate visa holders will not be able to apply for student visas onshore. Well, that's all fair enough, but to justify this, she outlines, this change makes it clear that graduates should be finding skilled jobs and becoming permanent residents or departing the country when they are more likely to become permanently temporary. These changes support a range of other changes that are being implemented for temporary graduate visa holders on the 1st of July. These include significantly shorter post-study work rights, reduced age limits from 50 to 35 years of age, and increased English language requirements, which were implemented in March. Now, how exactly will people over 35 be able to get a chance to find these jobs when you pull the rug from under them, suddenly saying that they cannot have the work visa when they finish their studies? It makes no sense at all. And to press this point home, tonight I'm speaking with Helena, one of those international students who will be denied her promised working visa because she is too old. In fact, this age restriction is more likely to affect women more than men, since they often return to study later after raising their families. When Helena completes her carpentry course, she won't even get the chance to undergo her skill assessment process, for you need a visa with full-time work rights for at least 18 months. Hello Helena, nice to meet you, and thanks for agreeing to come on to the show today.
Oh, yeah. Well, and thank you for your advocacy. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
I feel like in the field of lawyers, it's commendable to really care. I know you're probably not just doing this to get more clients. You seem to really have a passion about this, and I appreciate it.
Thanks, Helena. That's very kind of you to say. Now, tell us a little about yourself.
Sure. I'm studying carpentry at TAFE. I'm 39 years old. I'm from the United States.
Wow, cool. So at 39, that's a big career change.
Yeah, well, so I was actually, to be honest, I was looking to try to stay in Australia a bit longer than I can in my regular tourist visas. And what interests me in carpentry is that it could complement my job that I currently have, where I was doing in the US, which was painting murals, which is an outdoor job. And a lot of times clients would come to me and say, hey, we need you to paint, can you build a panel to paint a mural on so it's temporary? And I'd be like, I don't really know how to do that. So I thought it would be a good compliment to what I already did. And I'm trying to take more self-responsibility in my life. And I feel like something like knowing how to build a home is something that I want to know how to do instead of relying on other people to do it. And just being in carpentry school for 6 months shows me how important the building trade is and how much I've taken for granted.
Absolutely. We all need a place to live. Now, how did you find being a little older and being a woman fit into the carpentry school environment in Australia?
Yeah, it is a male-dominated field. Tape.
Definitely.
It's a sea of younger men. And yeah, I'm not a spring chicken, but it's been okay. It's been fine. Honestly, it wasn't until this 485 change came that things really started to bother me more about being older, because it just felt like it wasn't fair. I can keep up with the class. I'm doing fine in the class. It didn't seem fair just because of my age that I would be excluded from certain visas.
Yeah, it's very discriminatory, isn't it? I mean, being 36 is just so young anyway. You really have to wonder how really crazy this new plan is. So how did you feel when you first heard this news?
I was really devastated, to be honest. I knew there was always a chance that I would get sent home after I graduated, but all of my research pointed to the fact that that was slim to none. Yeah, I was super, super bummed.
And this change means you won't be able to do the Job Ready program, for you won't have full-time working visa, isn't it?
And I won't be able to get my skills assessment.
Oh, tell us, where are you studying at the moment?
TAFE Nambour, which is on the Sunshine Coast in Queensland.
Yeah, that's pretty regional.
There is a lot of need for trades workers, especially in regional areas of Queensland. I don't think any of my classmates will have a problem finding a job after they graduate.
It certainly sounds like it in today's construction trade shortages. And how did you feel when you heard that the PhD and Masters by Research students became exempted and you guys were still excluded?
I was happy for them because I knew that there are more people who are in the older end of the age spectrum with PhDs and masters. Someone like me in the trades being 39, that's more unusual. I know that. So I was happy for them, but then I thought, ooh, that doesn't look good for us in the trades, because if they're already making allowances now, it means that maybe they won't make them later. They're making a statement in a way.
I mean, really, everyone just wants to be treated equally.
Yes. It's an ethical thing, right? That's what part of the reason I'm so disappointed. It's like, how can the Australian government go back on what they promised? I know that people would have thought differently. I would have at least had a second thought had I known that this new migration strategy was coming into place and I would become ineligible for working after I graduated. It is an issue of ethics.
Yes, it seems that some in this government never received training in ethics. It was a big step for you to come here, wasn't it? A big investment in time and money.
I sold my house in America before I moved over here, so I'm able to fund my way through school, where trade school isn't as expensive as a master's. Obviously, I'm paying $24,000 for 2 years as opposed to 1 year of a master's. But not everyone is as lucky as me, to be from a country that's more well off. I'm going to have more funds typically.
And would you have come here if you'd had known you weren't going to get the graduate visa after your course?
I just don't know. It's hard to say, right? Hindsight's 2020. Yeah, I just don't know. I would have definitely reconsidered. I wish I had known. I wish I had known. Yeah.
It's only fair when you make a decision like that, you need to know the facts ahead of you before you commit.
Absolutely. I gave up my whole life. I mean, selling my house, got rid of most of my possessions. Yeah. Yeah, it was a huge decision. I think it's a huge decision for anybody coming over here for long-term study.
Yeah, it's a huge step in faith when you're guided by what the government told you was available after your studies. And in the end, all we're asking for is a transition period for students like yourself who will be affected by these new age rules.
Yes.
And in the future, if they want to cut new students out that know this before they come here, well, that's their right to do so. But to affect you guys is something completely different.
Yeah, I think that's fair, because then people won't be put in my position where they didn't have all the information before they decided to move over here. I see what you're saying. Just grandfather us in, please.
Absolutely, and that's what we're still pushing for you and like for many others. And it's not over yet. Helena, thanks so much for joining us and sharing your situation. I'm sure there are many other trade students out there and other courses as well would appreciate your effort to come forward.
Yes, thank you so much, Karl. You have a good day.
Thanks, you too, mate. Take care.
Bye.
Thanks so much, Helena, for coming on the program to share your experience in Australia. Let's hope it will be a better one, for the Minister can announce a transition period at any time she wishes. Well, on that hopeful note, it's time to end the program. Thanks so much of all of you and all of your comments, which I'm afraid I have not been able to get to all of them. There were over 500 comments for the last video, and I think I only got to about 300. Remember, if you need help, we are always here to lend a hand. You can book a consultation by going to our website, but if you're in a hurry, just pick up the phone and perhaps we can squeeze you in earlier. Remember, you can support this channel and our work by hitting the subscribe and those like icons. As always, take care out there and I'll see you next time. So bye for now.